perilously perch it on top.
It is, let's say the perch. You gave this to me.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
You gave this to me in a tap handle that celebrated the Great American Beer Festival. Do you remember that?
Yeah?
Yeah. Thank you. It's in my closet on a tapping system I never use, but it still exists.
Hi, Rob.
Andrew Bauman beat me again.
Here we are. Here we are.
It's the same day. Let's not even pretend we were doing 2 episodes.
Well, yeah, we had a meeting.
Yeah.
We had a long meeting.
Arizona is a wildly beautiful place, brimming with over 100 brewing companies. I'm Rob Fulmer, the Executive Director of the Arizona Craft Brewers Guild. I'm joined by Deputy Director Andrew Bauman. Together we cover the state, bringing you the best of what's happening at our breweries and beyond. Welcome to Arizona Beer Frontier. Yeah.
We had a long meeting.
About
the Arizona Strong Beer Festival, edition 22.
22. Yeah.
Well, it used to be the same as the year.
Are we asterisking it?
Except we had that one skip where we didn't do it.
Yeah. Well, we kind of did. We did a smaller version of it at Ellsworth. During the pandemic,
I remember. I was there. I love that festival.
It was interesting and fun, and people were up for it. People thought they were up for that forever. No. They're not.
No. I loved it. As a brewery, I would love to do that for every single festival.
Yeah. Yeah.
Touch every single guest that walks in the door. Give them your story.
You need to go back and work for a brewery again, because that's not what I'm hearing.
God, I loved it.
It's back to let's get more samples in more people's hands.
Yeah.
So
hey, it's different strategies. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. So Arizona Strong Beer Festival, we announced at the awards the new location. We played a video.
Here we go.
We will put it in this. It won't be really exciting for the podcast. Maybe we'll put the crowd reaction.
They went crazy.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. It was. We folded, or I folded the general Salt River Fields video, reordered it a little bit, changed a few elements towards the end, kind of ghosted in the logo, and changed some words in the script, like
On screen.
instead of baseball, it said beer ball.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And nobody noticed. I superimposed. They're doing this flyover of a festival, and I superimposed the Strong Beer logo on one of the tents.
Good job.
Yeah, I told Sean to look
Easter
for it.
eggs. Yeah. Easter eggs, baby.
Yeah. So yeah, and then we did their end slide, and then we put our end slide on it. And yeah, people.
Yeah.
I think they were just like, oh, it's a performative video, like good for those guys, and then like, so I think
Yeah, they were just like, oh, they're showing off. They paid for sponsorship, so we're giving them a video. Okay, what?
It was great.
Yeah,
it was great. It wasn't a huge secret within our ranks, but it was huge enough.
Yeah.
And I'm glad it was taken in that spirit. And we had Visit Phoenix there, and we had
Visit Mesa.
Yeah, sorry,
Mayor Giles.
Mayor Giles. So we had to tip our hat to Bell Bank and work that Mesa did.
Yeah, but we don't ever have to do that again.
Yeah,
we've done all of our hat tipping. We've acknowledged them as great partners, just not the right partner for us right now.
Right.
And yeah,
for that, we might do something like
sure.
in the dead of summer to have a under 1,000 festival, because I think we could hit 1,000 next time we do something there indoors. Could be very good,
Yeah.
and for that East Mark crowd, and working with Tap Dragon and some of the other places around there that worked with us in the past. A couple other nearby craft beer bars. I think it could be fun.
Yeah.
So, what are we talking about today? The same day.
Oh, so we talked about the Strong Beer Festival being at Salt River Fields on February 18th, 2023.
Yep.
We are getting tickets out very soon. They're going to start out less expensive and progressively get more expensive as the event approaches. So if you want to save some bucks, get your tickets early.
Yeah, and I would say also where we are going to be somewhere and and we say that we're going to sell tickets, that's going to be your best chance. So right now, as of today, that's looking like Barrels, Bottles, and Brews. So if you are attending Barrels, Bottles, and Brews, we will pass some savings along to you with a ticket we can put in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal. If we decide to do some other things, like in the past we've done Black Friday, that's a little less clear. As you can see, if you're watching the video, this office is inundated with
Tons of stuff.
the trappings of a lot of canceled events or older events, and we're trying to weed through that. This is not a place that if you were comfortable coming in and looking on the merch wall and browsing, shopping.
There is no merch wall. It's just a wall.
We have this studio in here now, so yeah.
It's something.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah, so, but, you're just going to have to follow us, pay attention. We'll try to make mention of it. If you bought a ticket from us in the past, you will be emailed as long as you don't opt out of that MailChimp email. So great way. If you pay attention, you can get the best situation if you're interested in coming to our event.
Right.
Yeah.
So now on to our main topic for today.
Yeah. Which is?
Main topic is alternating proprietorship versus contract brewing. So sometimes we just have fun chats about events in the industry and great fun things. And sometimes we are here to discuss the finer points of the beer business, which are oftentimes lost to the public because it's not part of their thing.
And we're talking to multiple audiences. We're also talking to our brewing members who may not be aware of the law change that over the series of a couple of years with some things. We're talking to casual fans who are interested in how things. People ask me how we're different from other states, or what caused things to grow here quickly, or how can I get a brewery in my neighborhood or my city and that kind of thing. These are all important things to understand. And by no means are these settled matters. We're going to launch these initiatives. People are going to take advantage of them. And there might be some pressure for us to pull that back, which we're going to resist. So, to the extent you can be understanding of how this works and what the intent was and the legislative intent that we put behind it, and the business reason we put it out there, it's important.
So let's set some definitions up front.
Okay.
Contract brewing.
Yes. Legally, it means nothing in terms of the legislation and state law. Contractually, contract brewing, that part of that legal framework is important. It's like any other contract. So you are held to the standards of the contract, and it follows contractual law.
And if you are the person making the beer,
yes,
then you are required to pay taxes on that beer.
The beer is yours.
You may get that money back from your contract partner, but according to the feds in the state, you're the one making it, you're the one paying it.
You're the one paying it, and you hold the distribution rights for it.
Right.
So, and also,
your name has to be on it.
Yes.
Your name has to be on the package. Your name has to be on the keg.
Yep.
It's your beer, even though someone else is marketing it.
Exactly. Somewhere in technically the public is supposed to be able to find out. You say, hey, that's House Handle. Who makes it? Not always communicated well, but it's not a issue that we generally feel strongly about. But that's technically that they're supposed to say, well, this is a beer that we made in conjunction with blah blah blah, but ultimately it was brewed here.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the keg collar. Keg collar has to be accurate.
And the
can package has to be accurate.
Chine has to have it on there, and it has to be, yeah. So it is well marked as the brewery.
Right. But in terms of brewing licenses, distribution licenses, license to sell, so your Series 6, your Series 7, 15, which are your
12.
beer and wine, restaurants. You have, if you are contracting beer, you don't have any standing to sell it.
Right.
You don't have any standing to distribute it. And you're already using someone else to brew it.
And if that brewer already has a distribution contract, you may or may not, depending on the whims of that distributor, be able to sell it yourself, or have that brewery self-distributed, which would be a whole nother ball of wax.
So you're the let's make it easy. You are the brewer.
Yeah, me.
In all of our discussions.
I make that beer.
And I am like, I got this really great idea.
Right.
And I know everything how to do it. I can source my own ingredients. I can do all this work.
Mm-hmm.
I can even come in there and do all the work.
I would never let you do that, but okay.
Just saying. If we're contract brewing, none of that means anything in terms of the law. I don't have any standing, even if I made every drop of that beer, packaged out every drop of that beer, bought the packaging, everything, paid you fair value to rent the equipment and the time and the space. It is still your beer, Andrew, and you're paying taxes. And you're responsible for the volume. You're responsible to hand that off to a distributor or self-distribute it.
And now if you potentially, Mr. The Kimchi Brewing Company.
No, this is the Padres.
Yeah, I know, but I was just
Uppa.
I know. Uppa.
Korean. They made this hat for me.
That's so nice. The Kimchi's Brewing Company wants to sell beer that I made, and they go out and they have a salesperson who puts together relationships with retailers, and that retailer says, yes, I would like to buy some of that Kimchi's beer. It sounds amazing. Let's do it. Or I sampled some of it, and it's awesome. And now where do we go?
Yeah, so again, I probably want to because I've done all this work, right? It's my beer. I mean, emotionally it's my beer, but I want to. Okay, Andrew, I'm gonna drive some kegs around. I'm gonna sell it. I'm gonna sample it out. Like technically, as soon as you release that beer to me, you've released it to me as a consumer, and I am no different than anyone else. So the beer that I take in my vehicle is my beer, but I cannot bring it into a premise.
No.
I cannot.
Because you've already bought it.
Yeah.
I mean, you might have bought it for $0. You might have bought it for whatever. But you can't take it out and sample it because you are not an employee of Andrew's Brewery.
Yes. Yes.
An employee of Andrew's Brewery would take beer, sample it for the sales purposes.
Right.
But you are not.
So put a pin in that part of the discussion as an employee because there is a way that this can sort of work. But it also has its own complications, as you might expect.
Sure.
But if I, as the guy, the idea guy, the guy that the recipe, all that stuff, or just the guy that says, "Hey, Andrew, I want a beer," and I want
beer, I don't care what it is,
Right.
just make me a light lager.
Right. I might as well just go to a store, buy Coors Light, and say, "This is my beer now, and I'm selling it to all you. Here, sample it. Here, I'm delivering stuff." That's bootlegging,
Right.
and it people don't understand that because it's, well, I made this and I worked with these people. I mean, in terms of Title IV, which is the series of laws on alcohol that were written, over the last 100 years, that haven't had a lot of case law, but enough. You're not able to do that. Can't do it. So now,
The employee thing you're talking about. If I
so-
were to say, okay, I will hire you as my employee.
my salesperson.
Yeah, as my employee salesperson to sell the beer that you're contract brewing.
Right.
And I will have to pay you.
Yep.
And I will take liability for your actions.
Right.
And I will.
And by the way, the deal that we had, now it's going to cost you more because
I'm having to do all these things.
and you're paying me.
Right.
So I'm buying your beer, but you're paying me. So again, go back to the Coors Light thing. Like no one pays. It's like you're getting this. You're buying the beer and you're getting paid. doesn't happen in real life.
So this is contract brewing. It has been a model which, did you hear that voice squeak?
Yeah.
That's nice. It has been a model that people have used to some success.
Yeah.
And
It you know how it works well is if I am just not a guy, I own a bar, I have a license, and I say I want a house beer, and I can do all this work or not, or I can just call you up and send me a beer. I don't care. Take a beer that you already have and just rename it. I don't care. Or add, do another dry hopping on it and whatever, or I'll change significantly the recipe. But if I have a retail outlet, then it does make a little sense because
there's no selling involved.
Right. Well, I have a retail place to sell it. I'm probably less interested in selling it to other places, although that can happen. But if it takes off in my bar, then maybe you as the brewer are interested in selling it, helping me sell it together. That makes some sense. But I have standing in the law because now I have a retail license, and I can actually go pick up at the dock because I'm a retailer. I'm buying the beer.
Right. So how does it work for companies like Maui?
That is something like, well, I'm going to be on TV every night promoting this brand. I mean, that is something that would interest a distributor, would interest retailers, like, potentially. And so there is some stuff there. But your idea or your new brand that doesn't have that track record much.
I'm a home brewer and I really like making my certain magical rose, English rose ale.
Right.
Ooh.
Yeah.
And people love it. Everyone tells me it's awesome. And I have this brewery that's going to make it for me.
Yep.
And I want to see it on draft at all these restaurants and bars near my house because it'd be so cool.
You know how you get that done? You hire somebody who's got a 20-year track record in working with one or two distributors, who has relationships with all those retailers, so it's a lot of money. And you hire a marketing firm and you have a PR campaign. So you're spending, I don't know, hundreds of $1,000s before you even make
whoa. Rob,
yes.
I like your ambition, but let's calm it down a little bit, okay? Now, we've established the limitations of contract brewing.
Yes.
So could you tell all of our lovely listeners what the advantages and disadvantages of alternating proprietorship is?
Sure. So as an alternating proprietor...
Not advantages for your attorney. Advantages for you as a business person.
Well, let me just explain what it is first. As an alternating proprietorship, you own a license. You have a license and the same license of the brewery you're working with. We'll keep it to one product. We'll keep it to beer, but we can get...
You have a federal license. You have a state license.
Right. So...
You have a city TPT probably.
Right. So again, such that it is, you are the brewer. This is your brewery. We're in right now.
Yeah.
You are. And I want to be a brewer too. And I have some skills and knowledge just like I did before.
I've known you for 10 years, Rob. I think you're a very upstanding fella.
So
I would love to see your success.
I noticed that you have this warehouse space here and it's adjacent to the hot side of your brewery and your tanks are over here. And
we're doing a pretty good business here. We love it.
Yes. We
have a little bit of room to expand.
I just want to compliment you on the many awards you won on Friday at Arizona Craft Brewery Awards.
Thanks.
Second.
We've got a little bit of room to expand.
Wait, I should have played the harp music. I'll put it in later. I'll put it in later. Hey, remember like last year when this all came together? No, I can't hit it now because it's going to make it more complicated. Like someday we'll do a live show and then it's going to make sense.
Great.
So over here behind me, I noticed you had this area. I'm going to put in some tanks and I'm going to have an area where I pay my own. I have a tax determination area where product that I have I will account for so that I can pay taxes, federal and state, directly, and you won't have to do any of that.
It's like 3,000 square feet. I'm going to have to charge you rent.
Yeah, of course.
Great.
So I'm going to create my brand. We're going to, I noticed that you brew on Mondays and Wednesdays. I'm going to brew on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I have my own supply chain. Although we share this one.
Yeah. Like if I'm making beer and you're making beer and we both need ingredients,
Yeah.
work together and maybe get discounts from our suppliers.
Right. Or order that.
I know there's some things you use that I really don't like that grain, but
Yeah, but like we could get we can maybe we'll hit the volume. Then it makes sense for us to go to Yakima to pick our own hops.
or get a silo.
Yeah, great. So that's
sounds
how
awesome.
this works. And I will pay my own taxes. I will have a license, so I can distribute my own beer. I can hire my own sales staff,
Or sell it yourself.
and if you get too busy, we can share an employee. That can happen too.
Yeah. If I had this one dude that, like, if I had one more half a person to keg my stuff, oh my God, my life would change.
Right.
I might be able to see my wife again.
Yes, and your tap room.
Yeah.
You never like to do those hoppy beers. You like to just do the saisons. I'll do the hoppy beers in there, and like it'll make the experience better for the customer.
So far, this is sounding amazing.
It is. Now it's going to cost me more. I have to get licensed and bonded, so I'm going to need some time. But I think this can work out. And then, I guess we'll have to figure out what happens when I get too big or you get too big. But on the flip side, maybe we can get a bigger building and we can offer this service to other people. Or we could get big enough and we can contract too. We can do either or.
And you maintain that brand as your beer. And you maintain your own self-distribution rights and your distribution rights and your wholesale rights and all your contractor rights.
Yeah.
Just like your own brewery, we just share some equipment.
Right. And
Or cidery.
We
Or distillery.
Well, yeah, we didn't get onto that.
I know we have it.
So our law here in Arizona, we did change so that I could be a winery. And we won't share as many things.
In our tap room, we could have cider?
I'm saying that I will make cider and it could be in that tap room.
I like that.
But we won't share the hot side anymore because that doesn't make a lot of sense. But
Don't need a lot of hot.
Maybe though, because I need tanks just as much as you need. Maybe we can write a deal where we could both get tanks because now we're ordering more.
Yeah.
Right? Or we could get a larger tank.
How about I need two and you need two, but we could get them in one shipping container and ship them together.
Right.
And not have to pay for two different containers.
Well, and then maybe there's a product that I only make once a year and I need some capacity just for that one time, but you can use it the rest of the time. That's something that we could figure out. Or a distillery. We could bring in, now that I'm making cider, we can distill that. We can blow out this wall and get the next suite. And yeah, this is how it could work.
So alternating proprietorship seems so perfect.
It's a little bit more expensive because now I'm not just saying, hey, send me a beer, or if I'm a retailer, I'm actually now getting into a different business and it's a little more complicated legally. Fortunately, there are people who can help you with the contracts and also the arrangements. You're going to have to spend money on that. You can't roll this on your own. We have people who are lawyers in this industry that hire other lawyers. If you're a lawyer in this industry, you don't do this yourself. You hire the right lawyers. Like if you think you're a lawyer until
you find alcohol industry and then you're like, oh, geez, that is something.
Or that you have to actually defend yourself and all the laws that you knew to get your licensing don't apply to all the laws you need to negotiate your way out of that situation.
So the big difference is with alternating proprietorship.
It's investment of time, resources, costs.
Time. Contract is still going to be necessary for the use of that equipment.
Yep.
Scheduling.
Yep.
Because you literally are the owner of that equipment while you're brewing on it. But the upside is you maintain that keg has your brand on it. That can doesn't have to say Andrew's Brewery for the kimchi beer.
Yep.
It can just say Kimchi Brewing.
Right.
And you maintain your distribution rights, which you do not under contract brewing.
Exactly. Now, there are some interpersonal things, like maybe we find that we don't like each other as much now that we're working together all the time. You haven't found that yet.
It can be difficult.
Yeah. So let's open this one. This is so wet. I know Doc didn't want us to drink these, but we're not talking about them. We're just drinking them.
Correct.
So there's those complications. Something I didn't mention on the contract side is capacity. I think everyone has in their head, in an ideal world, here's where I'd like to work with. But if they're a brewery that you like, then chances are other people like them, and maybe they don't have the capacity. Maybe they can't take your product because they're too busy making their own.
Yeah.
And if somebody says, I have all kinds of capacity, maybe
we had a local brewery that had some capacity issues for a short time and had to contract brew some beer.
Yeah.
And that was convenient that the contract brewery was the same distributor.
Yeah.
But it could be complicated if they're not.
Yeah.
And
well, long story short is this is our last show. Andrew and I are going to business. We're making beer in this office. I'm apparently making cider and distilling in the future.
wow.
And we're rolling tanks in. And
if we're using
figured
this
it out.
office, we're definitely not hitting the state minimums.
State minimums are?
Oh, is it like 550 gallons?
No, it's 5,000 gallons.
Oh,
it's about 161 and a half barrels or something.
Okay, so that's why there's so many breweries that make 180 barrels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. So you have to make a minimum amount. And so when I started, people who wanted to start breweries were like, hey, and this, I think there's only a handful of states that supported alternating proprietorship. It was something that was sort of instantiated in the wine industry because they are so dependent on crop and share grapes or sell grapes to each other. But sometimes they want to do one-off batches, and each brand could be its own company and all that stuff, just because of how transitory that is and how transactional those relationships are. It started in the wine industry, I believe, but it wasn't something that was recognized by the state. And at that time, our current breweries didn't need it, and a lot of startup breweries wanted it. It's something that was interesting to me, and I kept it in my head for a while. And understanding that, as you mentioned, because you mentioned numbers, there are a lot of people at different levels. And what did you say? The top 10 breweries make 65% of the brewery beer in Arizona?
Yeah,
like
it's a lot.
Right. But there are...
I wouldn't say a number because I would like being accurate, and I don't have that.
Okay. But imagine 10%, 10 out of 100, making...
30 breweries make 80% of the beer in the state, and the other 60 breweries make 20.
So if they're all at the same size, how do they get bigger efficiently? And you don't buy exactly what you need. You buy and project out what you might need. And the value is you buy something that you clearly don't need, but it's going to be used effectively if you're partnering with other people, and that can be through contract.
We have seen,
but if you're invested as a alternative proprietorship partner, that relationship seems to be a little bit more long lasting than just signing a contract.
We've seen a beautiful relationship between Simple Machine and Kitsune Brewing.
That is a situation where it wasn't. It was structured like a contract, although that didn't. Or excuse me, it had elements of contract and also alternating proprietorship, but it was a contract relationship.
Yes.
And
Simple Machine provided an opportunity for Kitsune to get their name and experience and open their own space.
Tyler invested in some tanks, but he was also an employee.
Correct.
And so that is how it should work.
And he was a full-time 60-hour-a-week salaried employee working on both brands.
Right. But that is... the goal was not to have that as a permanent relationship.
Correct.
So
in alternating proprietorships, you could have that sort of relationship with a mentoring aspect where that person then leaves that brewery, that physical space, and moves into their own space. Meanwhile, being able to legitimately take those business records of their sales as their sales for business purposes. So that's an advantage too.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things that we could talk about and how this fans out. And one of them is that I didn't really mention, like if we're in a contract relationship, presumably you're distributing my version of a beer, let's just say that relationship changes or sours, or I take my business elsewhere, or I get out of the market, I guarantee that you're going to have an interest in producing something similar to that beer to all the accounts that you handled.
Mm-hmm.
And typically you have your territory. Maybe as a contract person, I want you to be in places that you don't feel are worth your time. Like if we're back to this contract thing and I'm like, oh yeah, I want to work with you, but by the way, all my accounts are in Tucson. You're like, well, we're not doing that. You may not find that out until down the road quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So those are all important things to consider. And we mentioned that you can have wine and spirits under some arrangement like that. And the federal stuff is a little different, but you can get it done. But you could have multiple.
I was going to say, so we're talking about 2, but you could have 3 or 4 different Bev Alc producers in the same space.
It's not limited by the law. It might be limited by practicality, but
sure.
I can see markets where 4, maybe 5 breweries are in some sort of partnership like this.
And maintaining their own brand name, and that's the key.
Yeah.
That's the difference. I mean, not the key. The difference is if you're contract brewing,
you keep your intellectual property, you keep your rights, you can move things around.
If you're contract brewing, you're giving them the recipe, you're giving them...
You're giving them access to your customers
all the assets.
because they're moving all that stuff on your behalf.
When you're in an alternating proprietorship, you maintain all that yourself because you're running your own brewery.
Exactly.
And, I mean, hey, recipes don't matter that much, but they can matter, especially if you have something that you're very, very proud of and want to keep to yourself.
To me, it's you have somebody in a contract relationship that if that contract ends, they have a relationship already with all of your customers, every one of them. So
Why did we get into this talk today, Rob?
There was an article. I don't remember the magazine.
Brewers Magazine, I think.
I don't know. It was all one-sided from
the contract brewers.
Yeah, like the pros and cons. I'm like, he's only talking about pros from his perspective, not from any other perspective. And
the first line said, basically, it's the same thing. I was like, no, my God, no, it's not. It's not the same.
No.
And I'm not running a contract brewery or thinking about opening alternating proprietorship. I just
alternating
proprietorship is like
our arrangement here's over. Okay. Didn't even take an hour.
It's like the alternating proprietorship is so. It can be better if you're willing to put in the work and the time. Yeah. If you're contract brewing and you are willing to say, hey, I have this beer idea, I'm going to get it made and run with it, and someone has a contract that will run with it, great.
Yeah.
But if you want to open your own brewery and potentially grow that as a business, alternating proprietorship is far superior.
Exactly. I believe so, yes.
Yeah. I don't know how to say that without sounding like it's just me.
No, I mean, the only time, again, to me, the only time you have a contract makes the most sense is if you have an established brand in a retail establishment. So
right. If you need additional capacity while you're waiting for some more tanks to come in.
Right.
I'm going to contract brew with someone. They're going to kick out some more beer. Right. Boom. It's going in.
Right. Well, let's talk about Papago. Papago Brewing contracted several breweries to make, but they had a brand name in their location, right. Papago Brewing, and they so they had that. They had a built-in market.
And you're going to maintain those intellectual property rights with your contract brewer. Like they couldn't call it Papago Brewing beer once you change that contract. They might make the same beer, but they can't use your branding. So that's for sure.
Yeah.
Now, when we were in DC, we sat down and listened to a bunch of brewers who are living through contract brewing and putting their brands out there. Why did that work? Why was that so exciting?
We're going to take a quick break. So we were in DC and we were at this presentation at the Hurek House, which is a historic brewery, and they had some panelists that were working in contract because there are some breweries that wanted to give some people who traditionally weren't in brewing. They wanted to give them an opportunity, and they had not had the ability to do contract brewing. But I think that's a necessary step for them. But it's not in their state law because they don't have a state. But they had DC is a district, so they could write that at the district level, which is almost like a city writing it, which would be interesting. So I did reach out to one of their council persons that was on the panel, and so maybe they're running that down. There was also something in Chicago area where I remember it was Haymarket that did a residency program, very similar. So those were contract situations. Both of those were, but those were like coming from a place of let's give some people some opportunities, not necessarily backed by any extra law or protection, but more of an industry kind of movement to sort of move the needle on diversity issues.
Right.
So those were cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think the next step, next step, if that it's something in their state or locality, is to grow that. You might have to have the option of alternating proprietorships.
I mean, I could see several of those breweries that were on that stage.
Yeah.
Opening one brewery.
Yeah.
And making a huge impact by doing alternating proprietorship.
Yeah.
But in Arizona, one of the biggest opportunities is to establish a destination brewery.
Yeah.
I know one.
I know a couple, but
that I can't.
I know the one you're talking
I want to
about.
go to all the time. It's a little far, difficult for me to get to, but Torito Farm with their brewery, restaurant,
Yeah.
Airbnb,
Yeah.
special event venue, creamery, dairy, retail store, wine bar.
Yeah.
Like, that's a huge destination brewery.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah. And it can start out small. You mentioned the state minimum. We went to a couple places there, and I know that water is a concern on there, but you can start out with a nano under the auspices of the, what the advantage is you already have your insurance, a lot of your hard costs built, and it's easy for that person who has established that license to rent out at a reasonable cost. But you could pilot it as its own entity, separately from your own enterprise, offer products, and if it grows, like then in that remote area, you can do two things. You can continue to be in rural Arizona and maybe pick a larger center, industrial center that's not as picturesque as Torito Farms, and still get that done. Or if you are a rural brewery or an Arizona brewery and you want to get to the rural areas, maybe you can be a partner. So it's kind of unspoken, but it's tough for a Phoenix brand to do well in Tucson or Flagstaff necessarily without feeling like the locals sometimes treat that as a outside brewery coming in. But there are a lot of ways that you can sort of dip your toe in and have some investment in the community and have a physical location and not make that huge investment of just kind of seeming like you're rolling in. In Phoenix, I mean, you can look for that less expensive part of town, larger warehouse space, maybe not poise it as a place where people can have and sample product, and spend some time making beer, getting caught up, and maybe working on that neighborhood or that experience down the road. Mm-hmm. I think it gives you some less expensive ways to get a little wider and a little deeper.
So alternating proprietorship is a license separate from the brewery license?
No, you get a brewing license, and then
it's just a philosophy?
Yeah. Well, you have to get your license, so it's no different. Mm-hmm. So you have to qualify in every way that the other license holder has. So if there are things that you need to replicate or duplicate, I can't think of any off the top of my head, but you have to pass local inspections and all that stuff. But it's more about how you operate. So if they find that you're not keeping your own taxes or you're not keeping some of the business functions separated, it's potentially possible that the liquor department could come in or the luxury tax department could come in and say this is not working as designed, and how they sanction you for that is an open question. Mm-hmm. I think it would take a lot for them to shut you down outright, and unless there was some malfeasance going on. But It's an arrangement where you can. There wasn't a huge hurdle in terms of the state. They just want to make sure that they're getting their tax money and that they want to understand who's making what. And if you can establish that, then there's no law per se. That there's no license. It's just that you can maintain that arrangement.
There is an alternating proprietorship license in the DLSC list because
For wineries.
Wineries.
Oh, you have to register. I don't know that it's not a license.
Okay, register. Got it.
Because at the time that we passed this, they were still making breweries, if they wanted to explore this, fill out the wine form. I know that. And it's not a big deal. It says winery, you put your brewery name, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the legislative process. They write as many rules as they can anticipate will be part of the process. Mm-hmm. They probably didn't get to that at the time that this was possible. So that's why you want to get as much information out there so the stakeholders that are first to launch these things are on solid ground and they work with us so that we can mitigate any hiccups with this new arrangement. But yeah, it's a very exciting forward-looking thing that now addresses some of the growth of our traditional breweries that have been around and also makes it more inviting to new entrants to the market.
Right. And I mean, it's going to be a lower cost to enter if there's someone that already has the equipment.
Yeah. And I don't want to, project what the savings would be because I don't see it as that. I think it's really more that you have a relationship with somebody who can help guide you through this process, or you can work on it together potentially.
Right.
So I think that, maybe someone pencils out, I'm like, well, we didn't really save anything. Well, you got a much better value for what you got.
Opportunity.
Yeah. So you may, even if it pencils out the same, you have an invested partner with you. And, I guess that could turn sour too, but I think it's just overall in the aggregate a good deal for individuals, and I think it's really I hope it really propels our industry and gets some of the breweries that are small and might be subject to the swings of the market a little more stable, and I think it might encourage some people who have been doing the same thing for a while and could do it, forever, to maybe make a bigger investment and have the potential to either grow or make their production less frenetic and predictable, and so it doesn't have to necessarily result in net growth of volume, but maybe it just makes their life easier.
Right. Well, I mean, if you have a brewery and you are not using all your capacity and it's been 3 years and you don't see, like right now, there's not a lot of breweries that are seeing huge spikes in growth, especially when you talk about those 60 plus breweries that are making less than 1,000 barrels in Arizona. I mean, those are relatively stable numbers that are going to stay about the same. Yeah. And if you've built to do more than that and you aren't, here's an opportunity for you to perhaps bring out another partner who can inject some additional capital for renting space and renting time on the equipment without really having to do much more.
Well, and maybe it lets you brew less than 3 or 4 times a week, and maybe you're just brewing once a week, which would be a huge advantage.
Yeah. Right. And maybe you can use those larger vessels. And
Yeah.
Well, interesting talk.
Yeah.
Some of that behind the curtain stuff that I think makes a big difference for the opportunities in our state and is really exciting to me, but I'm a nerd, so.
Yeah. So if you're the casual fan, I'm glad maybe you got some insight. Like, don't go pester your breweries now about getting into an alternating proprietorship. Just enjoy the fact that your ticket to a festival helps us do with these kinds of things, and that's really it. You know, I mean, we take that and run with it, and we're not always fighting the man, and we're not always righting wrongs. Sometimes we're doing things that we feel like on the net. Arizona, even if you don't consume a single brewery product, beer product, alcohol product, if we widen the tax base and make our businesses more stable, aren't we doing Arizona a solid on this one? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mean, the alternating proprietorship is just one of many things that can help keep people employed and help people buy houses and fun stuff like that. I mean, and it seems like I'm being dramatic, but not really. I mean, anything that makes the business environment more positive for opening new businesses and giving more opportunities is always a great thing.
We just had the mayor of Mesa, who obviously stated the obvious. Mesa is not known for its breweries, but it is kind of now. And Mayor Giles, liked the fact that we were building his downtown and making it a richer experience for people who live there, and provided jobs and just really got into the community side of it. So,
yeah.
Well, let's leave it at that.
And we'll keep working on making sure that the environment is positive for businesses in our industry. That's our job. That's what we do.
Cheers. Wait, because I did this last time empty. Cheers.
Oh, wait. Everyone's a friend over a pint. Is that it?
I don't know.
Shoot. Beers?
Beers.